Host the ultimate backyard barbecue with Whole Foods Market. It's the hot grill summer event through July 16th with sizzling sales on no antibiotics ever boneless beef ribeye steak and beef New York strip steak. Plus, check out sales on sustainable wild-caught Alaska sockeye salmon, organic strawberries, and more. In a hurry? Choose grab-and-go favorites like picnic salads and sushi, plus plenty of cooler-friendly beverages. Make it a hot grill summer at Whole Foods Market.
A break in the city's main water pipe has had Calgary under severe restrictions for more than 2 weeks, and it could be several more before the problem is fixed. This has led to concerns about water usage and whether the city's premier summer festival, the Stampede, should even go ahead. I'm Dave Breakenridge, and this is 10-3. Calgary Herald reporter Scott Strasser joins me to discuss what led to the pipe's failure, how the city is managing the problem, and whether there are concerns that the taps could run dry. Don't forget you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. I'd love it if you could leave us a rating, a review, and tell your friends about the show. So Scott, many people in Alberta, I know definitely people in Calgary know what's been going on. Many people in Alberta have a sense of kind of the issues that have been plaguing Calgary and their water system. But for people across the country who may be listening who haven't been paying attention, Calgary has kind of been under a water emergency, and it's been an official state of emergency since this past weekend, relating to issues with one of the main water pipes serving Calgary's water supply. And I guess for people who don't know, when and I guess how did Calgary identify that there was a problem with this pipe, and what was the problem?
Yeah, so the news broke on June 5th in the late afternoon, early evening. Assuming someone probably called in to the city because water was gushing from the ground along 16th Avenue near Home Road Northwest, which is, like, for those who aren't from Calgary, 16th Avenue is kind of the main east-west thoroughfare, and it becomes the Trans-Canada Highway. So you take it if you want to like drive west to Banff or to go to BC. So people started reporting low water pressure in a lot of nearby Northwest neighborhoods. There's basically no water coming out of the taps in Bowness. So it was pretty apparent by the evening of June 5th, which was a Wednesday, that a below ground water main had burst. And the city did confirm that quickly afterward. And it turned out, it was revealed that the pipe that had burst was called the Bears Paw South feeder main, which is, as you mentioned, Calgary's most crucial water artery. So this wasn't your average water main burst. Those actually are pretty common everywhere. But like this pipeline is 6 feet in diameter, 11 kilometers long, and it transports 60% of Calgary's treated water to about 1.2 million customers from the Bears Paw water treatment plant, which is one of Calgary's 2 treatment plants. So it was quite obvious that it was a serious concern. And Thursday morning, we all awoke to an emergency alert on our cell phones at 6:30 a.m. that this had happened, and there was going to be some there was a boil water advisory called for the community of Bowness, which is adjacent to where this pipe burst occurred, and there was going to be stage 4 outdoor watering restrictions. The city imposed those that Thursday, which basically forbids anybody from, watering their gardens or using their sprinkler systems or anything like that. So pretty disastrous. And then that same day, the city called a citywide fire ban. Basically, they didn't want people having backyard fires. They didn't want to increase the risk of a fire occurring that would require firefighter response, because they wanted as much water in the system to be available for fire crews. So it really drastically reduced the amount of water supply that Calgary was able to draw from. And yeah, for the last 14 days now, we've been under some pretty stringent water conditions, and officials are pleading with the public to conserve water as best they can.
Do we get a sense of what happened to this feeder main, this massive underground pipe? Like, how is it that it failed, or do we know that yet? And what steps are being taken to fix the problem?
Yeah, it's It's still a lot of speculation at this point. Every time that question gets asked at the press conferences or council has gotten briefed on it, they ask that question. It's a pretty popular question to ask right now. And the city officials tend to pivot toward, we don't know why this occurred. We're going to investigate later. Right now, we're all hands on deck when it comes to repairing the water main and restoring water service to Calgarians so we don't have to impose these restrictions. Once the system is back up and running and this pipe is fixed, we can investigate further as to why it ruptured in such a catastrophic way. So, of course, that's led to a lot of speculation, and a lot of people are kind of doing their own sleuthing, interviewing people not involved with the city who would know why something like this occurred. There's been speculation about the soil conditions. There's, wondering if it's corroded the concrete pipe over time, exposing the pre-stressed wires that tightly coil around it. And when those are exposed, those wires are more prone to snapping, which weakens the integrity of the pipe. So a lot of questions still. Answers probably won't come for, I guess, several weeks as to exactly what caused it to fail. Some people have, there's been a report circulating that this kind of pipeline, which is pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe, or PCCP, this kind of pipe that was built in the 1970s, such as this one, they're quite prone to failure. And there have been examples in other cities around North America of similar ruptures occurring. So still a lot of speculation, not a lot of clarity yet on exactly why it burst. And there's also a lot of questions swirling around why the city didn't see it coming, like why they didn't have any, forewarning that this pipe was about to burst in such a spectacular fashion.
Yeah. And is it just a case of, digging up the pipe, finding the section and cutting out the section and replacing it? Like, what's involved in fixing this problem?
That, I think when you break it down, that's exactly what had to happen. But initially, the crews had to excavate the earth where the water was gushing from to actually determine exactly where the hole in the pipeline was. And that took a while. But then after that, once they had excavated the earth and sourced the problem, I think basically they had to cut that part out and then replace that piece with a newer steel segment of pipeline and then weld that in. And this initially, we were told that it would be about 5 to 7 days to fix the pipe and restore service.
And now that's been extended from 5 to 7 days to several weeks, right?
Yeah. So the reason that extension happened was revealed last Friday, and it was quite the bombshell to drop on a Friday afternoon. While this pipeline was out of commission, they were using robots and photos basically to travel through the pipeline and inspect it to see if its integrity was sound, and that analysis revealed that in a 4.5 kilometer section of the water main, there were 5 what they called hot spots that were essentially parts of the pipeline that were at similar risk of failing as the original rupture. So they determined that the need to replace those sections was urgent. They weren't leaking. They've been pretty clear on that, but my guess is the pre-stressed wires had snapped, and they determined that these need to be replaced as well. And while the system is not, while the water is not flowing through this pipe, we should replace those. So that's kind of what they're doing right now. They said it was going to be 3 to 5 weeks, which people in Calgary immediately associated with, well, that takes us past Canada Day and into the Calgary Stampede, which is July 5th to 14th this year. So questions started to be asked, like, is the Stampede going to go ahead? Obviously, we're being asked to take shorter showers and delay dishwashing loads, but then we're going to welcome 138,000 people for a 10-day party. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like it would be a bitter pill for a lot of Calgarians to swallow, the notion that they're going to go ahead with the Calgary Stampede. And I remember I was in Calgary during the 2013 flood when it seemed like there was a great Herculean effort to make sure that the Calgary Stampede, which had flooded, was ready to go in some way, shape, or form as kind of a symbolic gesture to the city that, it's back on its feet. The city is back on its feet. But the optics of this look a little different. And I'm wondering what the conversation was like, or the discourse was like around the word that the Stampede was going to try and go ahead in some way, shape, or form. And what does that even look like for them?
Yeah, we found out Monday afternoon that we got the confirmation that it was going to be going ahead in a modified fashion. So Stampede and Tourism Calgary officials promised that, there's going to be water conservation strategies in effect. They're going to use a lot more non-potable or untreated water to do things that they used to just use treated water for, such as cleaning and maintenance. They are going to truck in water from other jurisdictions, so that to feed and bathe the livestock that will be at Stampede Park. City officials also said that they reviewed water demand from the 5 previous Stampedes and determined that water use doesn't actually go up significantly during the festival. They said there's a couple of reasons for this, one being that a lot of Calgarians actually time their vacations with Stampede so they don't have to be in the city during it to avoid some of the crowds and chaos. The visitors kind of offset their water consumption. And then another reason they said is that early July often brings a lot of heavy rainstorms to southern Alberta, which means that a lot of people aren't using their sprinkler systems anyway at this time of year. So that was kind of their justification. There's also the fact that the Stampede is, Calgary's marquee event. It has a $282 million direct economic impact. So a lot of businesses and industries, especially Calgary's tourism sector, really do rely on the revenues that are generated from it. So I think a lot of people are, they understand why it's going ahead, but a lot of people are saying, we're being asked to flush our water or flush our toilets fewer times per day to save, a few dozen liters here and there. But then we're going to welcome, like I said before, 138,000 out of town visitors to come to our hotels. They may not be as prudent in their own water conservation as we have been. They may not be as aware of the crisis. So it's been a divisive talking point, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that plays into the whole other notion around like the messaging Calgarians have been getting. And I think there was a lot of controversy around some kind of vague messaging early on. There were some shots taken at the provincial and federal governments on the part of Mayor Jyoti Gondek. What has the political element to this been? Do we get a sense that the city has kind of overcome early stumbles to kind of clarify its messaging, that's it's stepped back from some of its earlier statements to try and work collaboratively with the provincial government, which can offer emergency assistance as needed? What is the nature of kind of that element of this story right now?
Yeah, I think you're right in mentioning that the mayor, Jyoti Gondek, was criticized on day 2 or 3 of this for taking some shots at the province for underfunding infrastructure in general in Calgary. So a lot of people didn't like that. They said, why are you pointing the finger when we're in the midst of an emergency? And there was some confusion in the messaging at first. People weren't, they didn't know, like, are we allowed to shower or do we just cut down our shower times? Can I run my dishwasher? Why are car washes still open? Why are golf courses still being watered? It took a bit of time, probably a couple of days, before there was some better clarity and answers to those questions. What helped was increasing the number of briefings. So there's now a daily morning briefing that Jyoti Gondek does at 8:30, and then there's a more comprehensive press conference every afternoon at 2 p.m. involving both her and a variety of city officials, people from the city's infrastructure, maintenance and management teams, the fire chief, that kind of thing. So that has helped. The messaging is finally more clear, but it definitely took some time before that. As for political fallout, what's interesting about this is like the city councilors, they're not really at the center of it. I mean, all they can really do from their vantage point is relay information to their constituents and demand some accountability from the city and from administration. And some are definitely trying to do that. Yesterday, council was briefed on the emergency as it stands, and after that presentation, they grilled the admin for probably an hour, if not more, asking very technical questions and basically, why did this happen? Why didn't we see it coming? What are we going to do to avoid it in the future? So, in terms of political fallout, I don't know exactly if this is going to be lead to any political resignations or anything like that. It falls more on the city and the staff and the departments than the politicians. But I do imagine that infrastructure is now going to be a talking point during the municipal election next year. And you're going to see a lot of candidates who demand, more funding for infrastructural repairs and maintenance and inspections, that kind of thing.
We'll be right back.
Host the ultimate backyard barbecue with Whole Foods Market. It's the Hot Grill Summer event through July 16th with sizzling sales on no antibiotics ever boneless beef ribeye steak and beef New York strip steak. Plus, check out sales on sustainable wild-caught Alaska sockeye salmon, organic strawberries, and more. In a hurry? Choose grab-and-go favorites like picnic salads and sushi, plus plenty of cooler-friendly beverages. Make it a hot grill summer at Whole Foods Market.
Amid all this is the question that I think has been lingering for a lot of people is could the taps in Calgary run dry? I know that it's the main feeder line. It's a massive water line. It's tied to the larger of Calgary's 2 water treatment plants, but there is a second plant still operating in Calgary, correct? What is the math here? What is the calculus for water conservation, the demand that the plants can meet, and where it kind of intersects?
Yeah, so that has been asked because, like you said, there are 2 water treatment plants in Calgary. There's the Glenmore plant and the Bears Paw plant, and both are still generating water. So even though the main artery for that Bears Paw plant is out of commission, it is still in operation to an extent, but obviously its ability to replenish the water reservoirs and the supply has been greatly reduced to the point where the Glenmore plant is under a lot more strain, and it's kind of working overtime, so to speak, to replenish Calgary's water system. A big part of the mayor's daily briefings include what overall consumption was from the day prior. So she'll come on and she'll say something like, yesterday we used 445 million liters. That's great. Keep it up. Keep having those shorter showers, etc. She's implied on other days that we were overusing and we were at risk of crossing what she called the system's threshold. So the threshold is essentially 480 million liters is what she has said is basically the max amount of water that we are able to use before we're not replacing it as fast as we're using it. And if that happened for days on end, Calgary would potentially run out of water, which is a big concern when it comes to fighting fires primarily, right? If the fire trucks show up and plug their hose into a fire hydrant and dribbles come out, then they're not going to be able to fight a house fire to the same extent. They'd have to use their contingency water supplies. So that's been the biggest risk. It hasn't happened yet. I live in the southwest quadrant of Calgary, and my water pressure has been fine throughout this. But it has been one of the risks, and a lot of the messaging from the mayor and city officials has been, we need to everybody needs to do their part. So yeah, some people have been asking, why do I need to, take shorter showers or delay laundry loads when, businesses are able to produce much more vast amounts of water than my little household is. But officials have told us 65% of Calgary's water use is from residences, right? It's from households. So businesses and commercial operators account for the other 35%. So really, the best way to reduce demand on the system is for households to abide by the conditions that are in effect. So not watering your lawn, not watering your garden, limiting showers, limiting, only doing your dishes when it's like a really full load, that kind of thing. And if everybody, kind of binds together, it will help.
Why, as I recall from the floods in 2013, the city does like to come together in times of crisis, and it's something that I know Calgarians have shown a propensity for doing in the past. I guess the last question I have is, do we have kind of a more clear timeline at this point, or is the city still, working toward a point where they may be able to offer a date for when these fixes will be done?
Yeah, I do think a revised timeline is coming this week, so potentially before the weekend. I think the 3 to 5 weeks were chosen quite conservatively because it would be an easy target to reach. And I know my post-media colleague, Rick Bell, wrote a column. He's predicting that this will be sorted out by Canada Day, which seems ambitious. But if you think about the repairs thus far, the original rupture was that part of the pipeline was fixed and repaired within 10 days. So these other 5 hotspots are being repaired concurrently, so basically at the same time. And now that the pipe from San Diego has arrived, those repairs can pretty much start immediately. The earth has already been excavated, so they just got to cut out the bad pieces of pipe and put the good pieces back in. So I don't want to speculate exactly when it'll be, back in service, the water system, but I don't think it'll be that 3 to 5 week mid-July timeline anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I know it's a story many people across Canada are following, kind of scratching their heads about, but looking to see when Calgary might get back on its feet again. Scott, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
10-3 is produced by Sean Knox. Theme music by Bryce Hall. Thanks to my guest, Scott Strasser. More from him at calgaryherald.com. I'm Dave Breakenridge. Thanks for listening.